It's another wonderful webinar Wednesday, and on our stage today, we have Carly Euler from Memory Fox. Hi, Carly.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. So happy to be back.
I am so thrilled that you are here. Carly Euler is the ultimate storyteller. And she is a nonprofit fundraiser navigating all sorts of technology. She is a storyteller, a creative thinker. She makes an impact on the nonprofit industry, and she comes to us from Memory Fox today. You just spit something out to this girl, and she weaves a gorgeous story. She has an incredible talent. And that's why she's here today to show us A, how to collect those stories, how to organize them, and how to share. And she brought along a lot of tidbits along the way. Correct, Carly?
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much. I am very flattered. But yeah, same for you. Every time we work together, I feel like we have these great ideas. I'm so excited to share this with everybody today because we've been working really hard on this for a long time. So I'm pumped.
Awesome. So just some housekeeping. There is a chat pod in the bottom right-hand corner. Love for everybody to put in there geographically where you're tuning in from, what kind of organization you are fundraising for. I am in sunny South Florida today. Carly, where are you?
I am actually currently in Watertown, New York.
Very nice.
Let's hop right in. Like I said, we have a lot to cover, so I would love to get started. Here's our agenda for the day. Just as Lori mentioned, we're going to talk about some out of the box stories that we're going to tell. Then we're going to talk about how to actually do the collecting of them, tips to stay organized. We're going to chat about your event website, tickets, sponsorship tips. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to actually convert your attendees into your donors. So it's the full spectrum. We're going to go through it all. But first, Lori already gave me a great intro, but a little bit more about me. I have worked at nonprofits for several years. And when I did work at nonprofits, I specialized in communications, peer-to-peer campaigns, which is my favorite type of fundraising. I also did a ton of work with sponsorships and major events. And some of the really great organizations I had the opportunity to work for and volunteer for were the Breast Cancer Coalition, the CODA Support Foundation, the Wiley Network, the Kenya Lacrosse Association, and the BOMA Project. So if you've heard of any of those, let me know in the chat. But I truly have done so many different missions. And like I said, I've learned a lot. I'm excited to share it with you today. I could tell you 1,000 statistics that say that videos help you raise more money. Photos help you, bring in new donors. I could tell you all those statistics, but I do recognize that using statistics to actually convey something that is visual is kind of silly to do when you think about it. So instead, I'm actually just going to show you a video that really resonates with me. So this video comes from our friends at Kids Health Connections. They have a program called the Fit Kids 360 program, and it is a summertime program where they invite families, children, and their parents to come enjoy the outdoors and do fun community related activities. I could tell you a lot more about it, but I'm actually just going to let this video speak for itself. And please let me know in the chat your emotions that you're feeling while you hear the video.
I love the mentors, and I love that they help me and they motivate me and push me up when I'm feeling down and I stop or I'm say I can't do it. They always say I can't, but I always say I can, but they always say I can do it. Never say you can't. So I love that they motivate me all the time. And we're strong, fit kids.
Well, I've seen this video hundreds of times at this point, but as you can see, it always gets me smiling. It always makes me think, wow, they are really enjoying it. I mean, that is program in action, right? We're seeing them really enjoy it in real time. And I just love that. And I really think that this is such a great example of, what we would maybe call traditional nonprofit storytelling. So it is an example of somebody participating in a program and then using that program or using that story to then go ahead and raise funds. So they use that video to be a part of a grant application. Okay, did I cut out for a second or can you hear me?
Got you. One person asked if they can move their type transcription. You guys can move that. It's movable by the viewer. And also the AV pod, you can pop that in and out too if you want to move us around.
Great. So yeah, like I was saying, this is like an example of kind of traditional nonprofit storytelling, right? Take a video, take a photo, and you use it to raise funds. But today I really want to challenge you to start thinking about some out of the box stories that you can tell. So instead of just thinking about your program participants and what they are thinking and feeling, let's start thinking about the perspectives of our donors, our volunteers, our leadership, our board members. There's a whole list here, maybe our sponsorships, our corporate partnerships. Everybody has a unique reason why they support your organization, how they learned about your organization, how your whole partnership came to be. So these are some kind of different stories that you might want to consider highlighting. But additionally, raising funds no longer is the only thing that you can do with stories. It's there's a whole spectrum of things that are really important to your mission that you can use these stories for. So instead of just thinking about raising more funds, there's all these other reasons why you might want to capture videos or photos. You can use it to educate people about your mission, maybe to enhance your brand awareness, maybe to enhance the trust and transparency of sort of the behind the scenes stuff happening at your nonprofit, and so on and so forth. And really, ultimately, I know one thing that we're all constantly thinking about ultimately is how to boost donor retention, right? So that is raising more funds, but really getting those people to come back, because we hear those stories all the time. Donor retention's at 40%. I feel like I hear that statistic every single day. But one way that you can, combat that at your own organization is let people in on the story and let people be a part of it. So you might be thinking, okay, that was a lot of examples. Those are a lot of different types of stories, a lot of different ways to use them. But let's just talk about a few specific examples that I'll share with you here today. So our friends at the Community Foundation of Martin St. Lucie, they actually use visual storytelling as a donor stewardship tool. And it's really just a really creative way to show their gratitude. So what they did is they asked their scholarship recipients to record videos that are saying thank you, but also in addition to just saying thank you, they asked them to include their favorite thing that they did that semester. And what that's meant to show is, because of the scholarship money that they received, they not only were, thankful for that, but they got to really experience something new that they might not have been able to do so. So the really cool thing about the way they did this is all these kids, they did a fantastic job. You see videos here where they are in labs, they're in dorm rooms, they're on field trips, they're in classrooms. They're really showing the full spectrum of what they got to experience that semester. And then you can see the Community Foundation, they took all those videos, they put it into one place and they sent it out to their donors. So their donors, then they could go through and click through them, they could watch them individually, or they could just take in the whole scene and say, wow, this is like a really big impact that my gift made. Another out of the box way that you can tell stories at your organization is actually to use it to perform your mission. So here's an example from our friends at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. So one of their pillars at their organization is public health. And during the pandemic, they recognized that a lot of people in their community had vaccine hesitancy, but they also just had a lot of questions about COVID-19 in general. And normally, through their public health focus, they would have scheduled a town hall and they would have invited everyone to come bring their questions, answer them live in front of doctors, and let people just have their voice be heard. But of course, with the nature of the pandemic, we couldn't all be in the same room at that time. So instead, what they did was they asked children to submit videos of the questions that they had. And they actually took those videos. You can see they got over 40. Then they took those videos and they sent them to trusted doctors in their community. From that, they actually created a YouTube video of the doctors answering the questions. And this was like a super compelling way that they got the message out to their community, because after the video was live on YouTube, they resulted in 1,000 vaccines at their 30 local pop-up shop or their pop-up clinics. So this was just a really cool way to kind of get the education out there, let people actually, get their questions answered and find a way that they could, really be met where they wanted to be heard. And I have a lot of other examples, but I first, instead, would love it if you would all participate with me in creating our own out of the box story today. So we're gonna take leadership voices and we're going to prove trust and transparency. And we're gonna do that. If you all would please take out your phones, go ahead and scan that QR code. It's gonna take you to a Memory Fox campaign where it's just gonna ask you one simple question, and that is, why are you passionate about your mission? I do recognize that you probably don't want me in the background, so you're welcome to mute me while you do this, but go ahead and pull out your phone. Just give me a 10-second video of you saying why you're passionate about your mission. And I know you're all here because you're all passionate about your mission. So don't even say that you don't want to do it. It might feel like a little overwhelming, but I know you're all passionate. So I think that, just give it a try. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Like I said, mute me. And maybe I'll go through and look at the chat and see if there's anything I can answer while you're all doing that. And then if somebody just wants to give me a thumbs up or something when you're ready, but really we'll just take a couple minutes to do this.
That sounds good, Carla. They can mute us if they're not. I see some amazing organizations in this chat box that came in earlier. We've got Homeless, we've got Fairy Godmother Project, we've got Autism Vision, we have Fundraising Consultants that probably help a whole lot of people. Pet Therapy. I know, like you said, these people are passionate about their mission. They showed up here and they volunteer or work in that capacity. So, and I did this yesterday, actually. I fake scanned right here, but I didn't. But I did it yesterday, and it took me all of, under a minute for me to scan, click, ding. And the only reason it took me a little longer is because I was watching yours back and messing around with all of the others. So,
yeah, I'm really excited to share with everybody what we all create together at the end of our presentation today.
Awesome. Somebody asks, what's a good length of time for video stories?
That is such a good question. So yes, that's such a good question. I would, I know this is maybe not the answer you're looking for, but I would first ask, what medium are you planning to share it on? But as a general rule, I would say, kind of just as a general rule on social media, maybe in email campaigns, I would do 30 seconds or less. And I think more and more often we're seeing that you can even kind of, this is kind of a traditional way of doing it, but I would say, let's think outside the box. Maybe just cut out the beginning intro that is going to take you 10 seconds just to say your name and your title. Chances are if somebody's opening your email to get a message from you, they probably already know your name and your title. That's going to cut down your video right there. Instead, you want to start off with your very first sentence saying something so compelling that people feel like they really have to keep watching it. So yeah, I would say 30 seconds or less is a good rule of thumb, because that's how often, or that's like how long people are going to have their attention span.
Awesome. And to get that 30 seconds, you probably have to take a couple minutes worth of video and then chop it down, correct?
Yeah, it really depends. Unless you might want to practice a couple times. I personally usually will write a couple notes and then I just kind of give it a whirl. But some people like to go by scripts. I think, but yeah, it really just depends on your personal style. But the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it.
Awesome. Hopefully some people were able to do it and we can grab those at the end. Do you want to do that, Carly?
Yeah, I will definitely be monitoring that right after I finish up these slides. What do you think?
Sounds like a deal.
All right. Thank you for everybody who went through this mission process. Can't wait to show you. Great. Okay, so you just told me why you're passionate about your mission. And you might also be thinking, wow, I have so many more ideas of types of stories I want to tell, but I really am not sure how to start collecting them. That's okay. I've got some strategies for you. My first strategy when it comes to actually collecting the content is to generate a domino effect. People love to feel included in things, and people really don't want to feel that FOMO. And if they do, they want to be a part of what you're all doing, right? So here's a really great example of generating a domino effect. So this is my colleague Danielle. She was at an event where she set up, instead of just a normal photo booth, she set up a story booth. So it has a it has an iPad there where you can record a little message about you enjoying your event. And Octria, you guys are always talking about great events. So this would be like a great example of where you can collect a story. But the cool thing is, make it fun, make it have a fun backdrop, give people maybe some fun props, and then also give them really good prompts so they know what they're going to say to the camera so they're not getting nervous. That once one person starts doing it, it's going to generate a domino effect because people are going to say, oh, I need to go over there and share my story. I need to make sure I do that before I leave. But if you think that might just be a little too complicated, or maybe it's just one step too far for your organization right now, I would instead give you my second strategy, which is to designate a content collection champion. So your content collection champion at your event, I would love it if it was a volunteer, not somebody who's on staff, because guess what? They have already been thinking about 25 other things. You guys all know that. You're all here. You're all doing those things every day. But when you have a volunteer that you have empowered to be your content collection champion, that's when you're going to make sure that you're not missing out on any of those stories. So some things that you might want to keep in mind when you're training your content collection champion is to make sure you go over the event timeline with them so they know how long of time there actually will have people to collect stories from. You'll want to make sure that they are aware of any notable guests that you definitely want to get a story from, or at least a picture, but hopefully get a video story from as well. And even if you have a chance to make a content checklist for them, make sure you get people at registration, make sure you get people while during the awards, or maybe right after they come off stage, maybe capture them right after they've given their speech. Make sure if you have a nice checklist where somebody can make sure that they're following along, that's how you're going to make sure that you don't go home thinking, oh, I wish I had got that on camera. Our friends here. Oh, yes.
Carly, for a decade, we've volunteered. My husband and I, actually, my husband does the MC, but we do PanCAN, Purple Stride Pancreatic Cancer Walk. Oh. And every year they have the area with the balloons and the backdrop. This year they had somebody assigned to that booth, taking the photos and telling people how to hashtag and share them out. You are 100% right, 1,000% right. Just assign a volunteer for that. And it's amazing what volume you will get out of that, what kind of amazing content and people participating just by having a volunteer there.
Yeah, you probably have volunteers, at something like that. You have volunteers that have to hand out the water, that have to hand out the t-shirts, that need to give out the bibs. Why not just put a content collection champion,
yes,
and make sure it's somebody who's comfortable with their phone, comfortable with technology, and they can just go around and they can get you so much content and you don't have to pay them. It's a volunteer. It's great. Like even just this example of from Family Giving Tree, like they got 148 submissions at that event, and it was really just their champion taking photos of the families with Santa and then taking photos of the children opening presents. Like it was just a really great way that they, that they got a lot of content that they can use all year long. Okay, my next strategy for you when it comes to collecting stories is when you, it's just a tip, which is when you ask great questions, that's actually how you're going to get great stories. So for example, it might be tempting to just ask someone, put a camera in front of them and say, hey, tell us your story. But instead, you really want to think a little more critically about what you're actually looking to get out of that person. What is the story that you think is actually going to be useful for you later? And so instead, you might want to ask something more targeted, like, how did this organization help you overcome the challenges you are facing? So that really is going to give them a starting point of, oh, okay, what challenges did I face? Where have I come? How did you help? That's going to give you something that you can actually probably use later, like in your annual report or maybe, at your board meeting, something like that. Another example would be, instead of just asking your volunteers, tell us about the work you do, you could say, tell us about the first time you volunteered with us and how did that make you feel? And then my fourth content collection strategy for you all, if you all work in fundraising, you probably have heard this before, but you really just can't be afraid to ask, right? When I first started working in fundraising, I realized very quickly that fundraising is a lot like dating because you really, people they can't go on a date with you if you never ask, right? And the worst thing they can say is no. So I would just say that collecting stories is the same way. People are not going to just come up to you and say, hey, I've got these stories for you. Instead, you just got to make sure you ask. A great example of an organization that does this really, really well is Wreaths Across America. And if you're not familiar with them, they do a lot of things all year long, but the biggest event they do is on the second Saturday of December every year, where they do a wreath laying ceremony, where they mobilize thousands of volunteers to lay wreaths on the graves of fallen soldiers. And as you can imagine, we're talking thousands and thousands of volunteers at hundreds of cemeteries across the nation. So they don't have a staff member at all of those places. They have volunteers at all of those places. So they're not able to bring a photographer to everywhere to collect people's experiences of why they're volunteering or the impact that the day is having on their family. So instead, they make sure that they let their volunteers know before the event, during the event, and after the event, hey, we really would love it if you would capture some photos while you're there. And actually, I don't know if you can tell, but that is a photo of me and my husband doing this volunteer work this past December. And they were super upfront, like, hey, there might be a part of you that might wonder if it is unethical to take videos or something while something like so meaningful like this is happening. And they're saying, we actually would really appreciate it because we want to remember these stories all year long. So yeah, they're just really not afraid to ask. And because of that, they were able to collect over 8,000 photos and videos just this past December.
That's amazing.
Okay, so I know I talked a lot about stories. I could talk about stories all day, but I do also want to recognize that you can't use stories if they're not organized, right? So how many of you have worked at a nonprofit or really just anywhere where one person has been in charge of maybe the procedural documents, or they're in charge of all of the photos from a certain event, and then that person leaves? And then you come to find out, oh, that was saved on their personal computer, or, oh, that was saved on their personal drive. We no longer have access to those things. That has happened to me before. So I always say the way you're going to overcome that is you need to be conscious about building a story bank. And there are many ways you can do that. You can do that with MemoryFox, but there are plenty of other tools that you can do that with. So these are just some tips on how to keep track of a great story bank. First, you absolutely want to make sure all your content is uploaded to some sort of cloud storage. So that could be your Google Drive, it could be Dropbox, could be MemoryFox, but yeah, some sort of cloud storage where multiple people have access, and many people on your team would be able to get to that content. So that's step number one, obviously. But then it's really also important to make sure that everyone is aware of what this content is. And you're going to do that by making sure that you're sorting it. So really important things to keep in mind when you're sorting your content is obviously the date, and then maybe the event that it's representing. So I always like to think about, you're doing maybe an auction for a gala that's happening this year. Maybe it's your first one, but 5, 10, 20 years from now, you're going to want to look back on those photos and say, hey, what was that first auction, first gala like? What did that look like? What was the theme we had? If you're not saving those in your drive with dates and the actual event name, then you're probably going to have a hard time finding those when you really are going to want them pretty far down the road. Some other things that you can consider sorting by would be the program that the content is representing. Maybe it's the program that it serves, or maybe it's the volunteer work that serves a certain program, because that's going to be helpful when it comes to like your annual report, or when it comes to any impact reporting for your grants. You also can take it one step further and actually sort by the person's name of who's in the photo. At MemoryFox, we kind of call that like the user, like that'd be like the person who used MemoryFox, but it really could be just the person who's collecting the content, could be the person in the content. And then finally, I kind of already mentioned this a little bit, but it's also could be helpful if you want to sort things into folders based on how you plan to use it or how you have used it. So in your annual report, in your upcoming email campaign, on your social media. So that's the actual getting of the content and sorting it. Then it might be a good idea, if you have some extra time to do some extra organizing, to actually have those links in a Google Sheet as well, where it's very easy for people to click and find that content. Additionally, I do want to recognize that not all content is photos and videos. Written testimonials are really powerful as well. So you want to make sure you have a Google Doc, again, in a shared space that has all of their stories that you're able to use. One thing that I do want to note when it comes to written testimonials, I know a lot of nonprofits have they have policies where you might change the names, or you might change the identifying factors. When you are putting written testimonials into a Google Doc like this, you need to have at the very top what the procedure is, and if those stories have already met those requirements. So are all of the stories already in the document? Have they already been removed of their identifying factors? Have they already been changed names? And I only say that because I have been a part of an organization that has changed. They weren't aware of if a story had been changed before, and they changed it yet again and yet again and yet again. And at that point, that story is actually no longer true. It's actually no longer anybody's story. So you want to just make sure that you're keeping the integrity of the story, but also, of course, keeping your requirements in order. And then finally, and this is not meant to be the least at all, but consent is so, so, so important. And being able to actually find where somebody has given you consent is super, super important. There's many reasons for that, and I wish I had, a whole nother session just to talk about consent. But just very quickly, I want to say that when it comes to consent, you really want to have a PDF or some way that somebody can click into having consent. So that's another way for me to say implied consent is not consent, and verbal consent is not acceptable, not anymore. So, like I said, I could talk about something like that all day. I won't today because that's not the topic of this conversation. Maybe I can come back and talk about it another time. But I just want to leave you all with that. We have our 2023 Ethical Storytelling Report. It has a lot of information about ethical storytelling, trauma-informed language, how to avoid stereotype stories. If you do want to scan that now, that's great. But I will send it in the follow-up email as well. But that way you can kind of make sure that the way you're telling stories while you're collecting, organizing, and sharing the stories is still going to be doing so without doing harm to your community. And with that being said, I would love to kick it over to Lori.
Awesome. Thanks, Carly. I don't know if I probably should ask this in the beginning. Did people come through here through Memory Fox, or did they come here through Octria? Maybe you're new to them, or we're new to you guys. I'm not certain. Love to know that too. Both. Oh, look, here come the answers. You guys are awesome. So hello, my name is Lori, if I haven't told you that. Octria was founded in 2011. Since then, we have not stopped innovating. And I've joined Octria to boost their auction and fundraising and see the wonderful causes that you guys are doing out there. And through that, I network with so many people like the fabulous Carly here to bring you other resources that help raise funds and raise money. So if we go on to the next page, I always talk about your event websites and how, can you click that over? Thanks, Carly. The video on the event website. Our templates are smart, and there's a whole bunch of them that are in there with colors and shapes and themes. And if you find one that you love, go ahead and grab it. If you find one you kind of love, you can tweak it a little bit. If you want to start from the beginning, you can do that too. But on any event website, you can include video. And this is how you are going to help raise more money. Carly talked about a little bit of statistics in the beginning, and we always talk about your event fundraiser. You want to raise money, but you also want to raise awareness. People are coming to your event, they're coming to your page, they're participating because they care about you and your cause. So if you share that video when it counts, when they are coming to visit, making a donation, buying a ticket, making a bid, and that's when you're going to trigger those neurons in their mind, and they're going to be like, oh, this is why I'm here, because of watch the little video, and it's going to make a difference for them. And like I said, Octory makes this easy with the out-of-box templates that you can go ahead and customize. Okay, let's move on to the next page. It's not just the website itself, it's selling out the seats with your stories. So just a couple tips on seats and selling for your event. And these are just a couple tips that come in regularly and that we've kind of put them all into one big bucket to show you how to sell out seats. Make sure you have a realistic price and it's easy to purchase and manage. Make your event irresistible. Create a fear of missing out from last year's event. Do this with the video that you collected the year before, whether it be in a little photo booth, video booth. Now you have that video that you can show people, this is what happened last year. Look how much fun we had. You're gonna wanna come this year and create that fear of missing out. A lot of times you will honor an influencer or you'll have a keynote speaker at your event. Grab a video snippet of that influencer or that keynote speaker in advance and maybe put that on the page, and they will tell you why they're coming, why they want to be a keynote speaker, not why they are, but why they are a keynote speaker, and give them just a little flavor of what they're going to have at the event. And that will encourage those people to buy a seat, maybe even buy a table. Carly talked about the volunteers, the volunteer committees. Those ambassadors are so incredibly critical. Grabbing those videos throughout the year, and I like how this is rolling into the summer because a lot of time there's some downtime in the summer and it's an opportunity to get a little more creative. Grab those people, grab those volunteers, the ones that were ambassadors for last spring or the ones that are going to be for the fall, and grab some little videos from them. That way you can use them. Then it makes it easy to share on social media. It makes it easy to share on the page. And at that moment of time where you've gotten them to the page and they're like, do I want an individual ticket or do I want to buy a table? Or do I want to buy a VIP table? Or maybe even I want to be a sponsor. And you can do all that on your auction and event fundraising page, streamlining the process for everybody, but creating that energy and that passion and pulling your mission through on that conversation. Which leads me to a sellout sponsors, which is the next page here. We're talking about selling out our sponsors with stories. So go back to your sponsors, the ones that you had last year, and ask them, give them this link as well. Why did you sponsor this? What did you get out of it? How are you using that in your regular business activities? The reason sponsoring is their marketing dollars. They're accessing the audience that you have, but also sponsors beget sponsors. Once one sponsor sees another sponsor on there and they're like, how come they're sponsoring? We want to do that too. It's amazing how that has a domino effect. And from our friend AJ Steinberg, she always tells us to treat your sponsors like royalty because they will come back if they feel appreciated. And then the follow-up is absolutely integral with your sponsors. After your event ends, do you know what I'm going to say? It's right on that bullet. Video. Show them a video of what happened at the event. Give them a snippet of the keynote speaker. Give them a snippet of the live auction. Maybe they weren't there. A lot of times sponsors will just buy a table or they'll sponsor an area, but the people that actually did that sponsorship or managed it don't come to the event. They'll fill the table with other individuals that are part of the organization or friends with the organization, but maybe the person that actually did it doesn't have it. Send them that video, show them, because when you go back and ask them the following year, they'll be like, oh yeah, we did do that. And this is what they did. And it's all tied together with a nice bow at the end. And here's a shining example of sponsors beget sponsors. And this is from a case study article that we have on the Octria website, but it talks about a marquee sponsor can provide so much more than funding. A local or national recognizable name brings an additional level of goodwill. So your sponsors are incredibly vital to your fundraising. And I brought along a sample sponsor packet. I know you can't read it, but the gist of it is the lower the amount, the smaller the amount of benefits. The higher the amount, the more benefits they have. And that can be access on the website, in the room, social media, all sorts of good stuff. And having video to show off that piece is incredibly vital. So I'm going to move on to the next page on there, and we talk about post-event follow-up with stories. This is also a case study. The Action Center did an amazing job at their virtual event, and they talked about this one woman, Cynthia, and she was a widowed grandmother, and they were able to help her with, I think, rent money. I'm not sure that's the right term. I'm sorry. Eviction loomed, and they helped her. Let me put it that way. So they talked about her. I think she was actually at the event and was able to eloquently tell her story. They put it into video. Post-event, they sent this out again and say, scan this QR code to watch Cynthia's story, or they had it in the email and they could click it. So they're tying together that story from Cynthia. And now you're touching the supporters afterwards. Hey, thank you so much for your donation. This is the impact that you have. So you're telling that story. Now you have the data from the event. You can upload that into your CRM. You can segment it. You can report on it. Thank everybody. And then continue to share more stories that will then give you permission in the future to invite them to more events, invite them to read your annual report, invite them to make additional donations. So your event website is just part of this ongoing cycle throughout the year, and your video makes that shine. The last page on here is some information, 2 QR codes. The left one is from Carly at Memory Fox. She's got her little goodie bag, and there's a lot of good stuff on that website. And then for Octria, we offer demos and free webinars all the time, usually about 2 demos a week, 1 webinar every other week-ish. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up. Carly actually joined us, gosh, was it like 6-8 months ago for a previous webinar? And it was a full-blown stories one. It was amazing. So you can watch any of those back. Happy to answer any questions, any comments that anybody has. We're happy to take a deeper dive on any of these conversations if you want. Did we miss any questions that had come in prior? Let me take a scan through here.
I'll go ahead and stop sharing for now, and we can see if anybody has any questions.
That's awesome. It looked like one person had a little bit of difficulty with the scan code. Can you put that up again for us again, Carly?
Oh, sure. For the
yeah,
for
just in case.
The links at the end.
The scan code to upload their video. Maybe they can just try it one more time.
Oh, okay. Yes. I can put the link in the chat. Would that be helpful?
Oh, that'd be good. I guess that would be helpful. Awesome. And then were there any videos that came in on the submissions?
Yeah, we had a lot of really good ones. Would you like me to show everybody now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just get that tab pulled up.
And I don't even celebrate Christmas.
Okay, I got the tab. Now let me just make sure I get the screen share. You know, I've screen shared 1,000 times at this point, but you just never can be quite sure.
That's okay. I understand. While you're talking about that, I see some people have made some friends in our chat here. One of the other places where it's fun to connect offline, but online is our Facebook group, Auction Team Talk. The nicest group of people. People are talking about auction and event fundraisers and webinars and everything related to it. If you join us on that Facebook page, love to see you over there. And I think you guys are on there and chime in a couple times too.
Yeah, I love chatting. I love seeing what people ask there, and I love just hopping in there sometimes. I have run auctions before in the past, so sometimes I have snippets of information that I add, but I learn a lot there too.
Awesome.
Okay, well, can you see my tab?
I can.
Okay, that's great. So it looks like so many of you submitted really great videos, and then we had just a few. These are like my example ones that I always keep at the bottom, but we don't even have to watch those because look, we have like real life passion here in the room, and I love to call this our gallery of impact, and I'm gonna click on a few and play them. All right, is everybody ready?
Yes, and you'll give me this link so we can share it afterwards, right, Carly?
Absolutely. All right, so let me just get right here.
I'm passionate about our mission and vision because all children, regardless of their zip code, deserve the right to equal education. I don't know what that is.
I love that. Love that so much, and I do know what that is. I think it's a new thing on Zoom on Macs, where if you actually do a thumbs up, it will show a thumb up. But that's what that was. But amazing! I'm so glad I picked on that one. That's so good. All right, let's see another one. Okay, let's see. How about this one?
I'm passionate about my mission because it's in memory of my brother, who I lost in 2017, and it's about travel and giving back to others. He was a big supporter of giving back to others, and he was my mentor. So that's why it's important to me.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really powerful. I love that. Thank you.
It is, and that's why I know that's why people volunteer and participate in fundraisers and events. And when you see that and you hear it with her gorgeous eyes, you're like, okay, yes.
Exactly. Okay. Looks like it's loading just a tad slow for me, but I am definitely going to send this out to everybody in the follow-up. And of course, I'll send it to you, Lori. You can also share it. And thank you all so much for doing that. And thank you all for sharing your passion. I can't wait to watch all of these later. Thank you so much.
I love it. Any other questions? Any other comments? If not, we'll go ahead and close out the webinar. And thank you for your time. I will send out a follow-up. It'll have the replay, it'll have the slides, it'll have the resource links and all that good stuff. I think that's it. A couple people are noting, oh, from Shay, how do you avoid the bidders getting frustrated when they bid and the video pops up? So is she talking about Octria? I'm assuming on the Octria website, the video, you can have it just reside in one little location. It doesn't have to move around. People were using a pop-up, pop-out video on the event websites, and they were usually doing those during virtual events. If you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. If you get stuck and you can't figure it out, drop us an email, hello@Octria, and we can show you how to do it. From Anna, what do you feel are the best platforms to post these types of videos? Our website, social media, YouTube, etc., especially if you're wanting to expand our footprint.
Okay, that sounds like one I would love to take. Great.
Wonderful.
Okay, well, first I would say, okay, so let me see the options that you wrote down: website, social media, YouTube. What are the best platforms to post? Okay, so a couple things. First, I will say that if you have like your founder story, or if you have like something that's about the way your programs work, kind of like a how-to video, almost like a how this works video, those are so important to have on your website, because nowadays people are really going to be less likely to want to scroll through and like read all of that back to back, and they would love to watch a video, especially if it's like a minute long, of like maybe your executive director explaining like how these programs came about. Something like that is so powerful, and you can usually put those, depending on how you host your website, you can usually host the actual video on YouTube and embed it in your website, which is really also a good way to make sure that your video or that your website doesn't load slowly. But in terms of social media, I would say that, well, I personally, I was telling Lori beforehand, I personally am trying to get more active on TikTok. I'm still learning how that works, but in terms of getting your message out to brand new people, you really do want to consider getting on something that is going to have a short form video component. So that is going to be YouTube Shorts, Facebook Watch, Instagram Reels, and TikTok. So what I mean by that is those are going to be your videos that are a minute or less, and those types of platforms inherently send your videos out to people who don't follow you. So if you just post it on Instagram on your regular Instagram account, like on your grid, that's going to be seen by people who follow you. But if you do commit to making sure that it's a reel and it's something that people enjoy seeing in real form, so a vertical video, 30 seconds, maybe a minute, that's what's going to hit new people. So that might be your ticket to getting new eyes on your mission. But I would love to just wrap up the social media, the social media conversation by saying the algorithms change every day. Don't beat yourself up about it. If something gets posted and it doesn't, get a bunch of views or it doesn't get a bunch of likes, it's okay. Post it again. All these old rules about people being like, oh, don't post things more than once, people will see it. They won't. Your people who follow you probably will not see what you are posting. 5% or less are actually going to get that on their own feed. So don't be afraid to post it again, post it again, post it again. It's really okay. And you're not doing anything wrong. It's the algorithms. That's it.
That's great advice, Carly. It's a permission slip that you're giving them. I love it.
Yes.
Hey, there's a question from Anna and a follow-up from Shay also regarding services that are therapy and confidential. Do you have any recommendations for storytelling for that? And Shay kind of tagged onto that they serve foster youth who are minors.
Yes, I do. So I'm actually teaching a webinar on May 16th, which I'm going to deep dive into the ethical storytelling report. So I will deep dive questions like that, but I do have tips for you today. So I would say sometimes like one strategy that I kind of recently have been adopting and recently been learning more about is that you don't always have to tell the story of the human, but you can tell the story of the object that is affecting the human, or something that is going to be a part of your mission. So that sounds a little strange, but a great example is if you work at a food bank, for example, and you have a delivery truck. So maybe you instead tell the story of the food delivery truck, and you say, hey, this truck, you set your phone up on the console and it goes through the whole drive and you see the impact that you're having. And maybe there's no humans in the story at all, but it's saying, this many miles makes this much impact. Me putting gas in it, putting gas in the tank has this kind of impact on the community that we live in. It goes this far to impact this many students or this many family members. Something like that. You can actually maintain anonymity, but still show your mission in action. So that's like one example, like telling the story of an actual object. But also, I would say don't shy away from some of those other out of the box stories I was sharing earlier, just because you can't, or I do want to recognize it's not always good to capture the stories of the people you're serving for these reasons like you just listed. But your founder, your CEO, your staff members, your volunteers, they all have really important perspectives to share. And that's also, they have really important stories to share as well. So I would say definitely consider leaning into the other storytellers in your community.
That's great advice. Any other questions? Any other comments? We have Carly here, and you guys were kind enough to show up and listen to her live, so you have the opportunity to ask any questions and have some answers. I'll give everybody a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Carly, I always wish everybody bids that soar, I hope they crush their fundraising goals. I'll give you the last word today.
Well, I would just love to wish everybody well, and just say, keep telling great stories.
Bye.